Welcome back, fellow Warhammer fans. Today we're going to take a close look at the latest Warscroll for Saurus Warriors in Age of Sigmar. As you may have heard, the points cost for Saurus Warriors has recently doubled, and many players are wondering whether this increase is justified. Well, fear not, because I've got you covered. In this video we'll examine the new Warscroll in detail, analysing its strengths and weaknesses and ultimately determining whether Saurus Warriors are still a worthy investment on the battlefield. So without further ado, let's dive in. Saurus Warriors are the brutal heart of Seraphon armies. Bred solely for war, their cohorts advance across the battlefield in disciplined lockstep, unleashing their cold-blooded savagery only when the battle is joined. Saurus Warriors have a move characteristic of 5, a save of 4+, a bravery characteristic of 8, and 2 wounds. They carry the keywords Order, Seraphon, Saurus, and Saurus Warriors, and they are now 200 points for 10. Straight off the bat, this is all broadly similar to what we are used to. Bravery is still really nice and high. Movement is standard for a foot troop. A 4-up save, which is really handy, but the wounds characteristic has now doubled to 2, so they are now twice as hardy as they used to be. I think this is exactly the right call, especially with the new model, because they just look big, imposing and brutal. They're definitely tougher and hardier than a normal man or elf. So it's really great to see this finally represented in the Warscroll. Saurus Warriors are armed with either a Celestite Spear or a Celestite Club. The Celestite Spear has a range of 2 inches, 2 attacks, hits on a 4, wounds on a 3, has a rend characteristic of 1 and does 1 damage. Whereas the Celestite Club has a range of 1, 2 attacks, hits and wounds on 3s, again with rend 1 and 1 damage. So firstly, the changes. The Celestite Spear was exactly the same profile, and so was the Club, except for now they each have 2 attacks on their profile instead of 1, and the Spear now causes rend the same as the Club. There's not a lot between these weapons. I think you're going to have to think about how many attacks you think you're actually going to have to make with your models. If you're going to reinforce your Saurus Warriors and you're going to bring a unit of 20 or more, probably the Spear might be your better option because you'll get supporting attacks because of the range of it. Whereas if you're just going to keep them to 10s, the Celestite Club might be the better option because it hits easier. And although it doesn't have the range with smaller units, that won't matter. The attacks on the profile going up to 2 is brilliant. It's really nice to have that as standard. So this, coupled with what we've seen from the wounds characteristic, they now have twice as many wounds and twice as many attacks. So they are definitely much more ferocious on the battlefield. One model in this unit can be a Saurus Warrior Alpha. Add one to the attacks characteristics of that model's Celestite Club or Celestite Spear. 1 in every 10 models in this unit can be an Icon Bearer. Add 1 to the Bravery characteristic for this unit if it includes any Icon Bearers, which will take the Bravery characteristic all the way up to 9, which is really good. And the Musician is 1 in every 10 models in this unit can be a War Drummer. Add 1 to run and charge rolls for this unit if it includes any War Drummers. These are all pretty standard. Now, the new rules that they have are ordered cohorts. This rule used to be add 1 to the attacks characteristic of their weapons if there's 15 or more in the unit, while now instead, this ability gives them an additional +1 to their save if they are wholly within your territory or they are contesting any objective. And I think that this ability is really good. I really rate this because you're going to start off with Saurus Warriors in your territory. And then, as the battle progresses, move them up onto the objectives that you want to keep. You can run your faster units as interference or your bigger units to clear off the enemy, and then you can plant these down on objectives as your army moves across the battlefield. You've got a unit that's got 2 wounds each. If they're coalesced, they're still going to get the Scaly Skin rule, which is -1 from the damage characteristic of a weapon that attacks them. And they get a free all-out defense for a 3+ save. So they are going to be really tough for your opponent to chew through. And they also have a new ability called Saurus Jaws. And how this works is each time this unit fights, after all of his attacks have been resolved, pick 1 enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll 1 dice for each model in this unit within 1 inch of that unit. These dice rolls are referred to as bite rolls. For each bite roll of a 6+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. This probably is only going to net you about 1 mortal wound a turn, but it's an extra mortal wound, and that, as we know, can make all the difference in those combats, especially when they're very tight, and especially when they're going up against something tough, because Rend 1, Damage 1 might not cut it against the really tougher monsters, but at least they do have a chance of causing a mortal wound or two. And that is their new Warscroll in its entirety. Now, my overall thoughts are, the Rend 1 and 1 damage means they aren't going to be your biggest damage dealers in the army, that's for sure. This is probably a unit that you're not going to fling up the battlefield. The Seraphon have lots of fast-moving, more aggressive units that they can do that with. This is a unit that you're going to deploy onto an objective, and it is going to hold that objective and really tie up your opponents. They're going to be difficult to budge. They can move up onto the battlefield and secure other objectives. I really like that now they are doubly as aggressive. They carry twice as many wounds. This makes them feel like the elite unit that they are. I mean, we're not messing around here. These are flipping dinosaur men. They're not going to have the same wounds characteristic as, as a Skaven. So this is really good. The Warscroll feels brilliant to me, and the models are fantastic. So I really rate them. Let me know in the comments what you think about them. And be sure to like this video and subscribe for more, because there are more Seraphon Warscroll reviews coming this way. And as ever, thank you very much to our patrons who support the channel. Thank you to Cedar Kuru Khan and Alethanar. And I will catch you next time.